Hey everybody, welcome back to the garage. What the hell? We got the Fast and the Furious going on outside. Sounds like he may be down a cylinder. Anyway, today we're gonna be rebuilding the stock turbo off of our LBZ Duramax project. Let's start blasting this thing apart. All right, so what we got here is the stock Garrett GT 3788 VA turbo. Yeah, this came stock on the LBZ motors. If you look at the edge of the blades, you can see how worn down they are. There's, like on this one, you can tell there's material missing on the edge of the blade there. So it's got a few miles on it, it's in bad shape, so it definitely needs to be rebuilt. In general, this thing is pretty filthy, so I want to make sure that I clean it up real nice before installing it on our nice clean engine. As far as the rebuild kit goes, I picked up this kit from Spoologic, specifically for the LOY LBZ engines. And their kit included a new compressor wheel, and it's just a stock replacement 11 blade billet piece. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm all about that instant gratification, so I want to check out this new compressor wheel. Oh man, look how shiny that is. That's definitely a good looking piece right there. All right, first thing I'm gonna do is remove the coolant lines. Yeah, it just started raining outside. Yeah, it's pretty loud. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Hopefully there isn't too much coolant left in here. Maybe there's none. That's good. I don't know about you guys, but I normally take 79 extra trips to the toolbox. I should say not necessarily extra trips, but unnecessary trips if I would just research what size these fasteners are instead of just guessing. I don't know. You know what I'm talking about. All right, so the coolant lines are off. What next? Probably take off the oil return tube here. That way I can set it down on the pedestal and not have to have it propped up on all this iron. All right, and that's oil or drain tube. All right, next up is the vane position sensor, which I'm pretty sure that's what this is, up top here, and that's 25 millimeter socket. It's all gunked up on the end there. Definitely clean that. All right, next the front cover is ready to come off. So we're gonna take off this bracket and these 8 millimeter bolts around the perimeter, and then this guy should just slide off. All right, that looks like all of them. There we go. Yeah, pretty disgusting inside of this thing. I mean, just look at how disgusting that is. I know it was probably a little bit hard to see before the front cover was off, but you can see the damage. Ugh. Apparently I'm allergic to compressor wheel damage. Anyway, you can see the damage to the blades here where there's a chunk missing out right there. This one's super obvious it's missing. This thing was definitely chewing on something. Okay, next we're ready to take the compressor wheel off. This side is reverse threaded on, so you spin it, what is it, clockwise? Yeah, just making sure. Clockwise to come off. So you have to back it up on the actual turbine wheel, so you get a ratchet on there. There we go. All right, there's the old compressor wheel. Pretty dirty. Look at that. Ugh, that's gross. It's supposed to be shiny and clean back there. Next thing to come off is the back side of the compressor housing, and that's just these 4 bolts right here. I think those are still 8 millimeter. Also, another thing I forgot to mention, there's a O-ring that goes around the perimeter here. That guy. There should be like a bearing assembly in here, which there is. Kind of hard to see with it all covered in oil. So this whole assembly here actually came off with that rear cover whenever I pulled it off, but I wanted to put it back on just so you could see a little bit easier the direction that it has to be installed in, because it has to go in exactly this way. So if you pull this out, you have an oil ring, which is this, and you have your thrust washer, which is this. And this is a 270-degree thrust washer, and I think in the kit that I bought, it's a 360-degree, so it's a little bit different design that's a little bit better. But what's important is this hole right here is where the oil coming from the oil pump gets pumped into the back of this thrust washer. So if you flip it over, there's a hole there. It's really hard to see, but you have these 3 holes on the front, or I guess that's the back, and then same thing, these 3 holes in the front. And there's a passage that's internal to here, so oil pressure gets fed into this slot right here, and then it gets pumped out through those 6 holes front and back. So obviously if you install this backwards, put it back on here. Maybe you can't. It's gonna make me eat my words. Looks like you may not be able to install it backwards, which is even better. This is the way it's supposed to go. So, all right, maybe you can only install it one way, which is even better. Okay, next to come off is gonna be this band clamp. Oh, there's the coolant. Let me find a spot to lay all this down. The bearings came out. Let me put these over here. All right, next we're gonna remove the turbine. Just a couple of light taps with the mallet on the back side of the shaft here, and this will pop loose. Get the bearing on there as well. Yeah, so there was no way that this Unison ring was actually able to rotate back and forth. It is absolutely seized against this inner mating surface right here, so I'm having to pry it up. There's the Unison ring. All right, I'm going to remove all the vanes, set those aside, because these are all going to go and get degreased. Probably can't tell on camera, but like there's just tons of carbon buildup in here. So this turbo was definitely not healthy, but once everything gets clean with the new rebuild kit, we put this back together, it's gonna be awesome. Hey guys, it's a few days later and I've got everything laid out here ready to go back together. All of the pieces that we're gonna be reusing, I've cleaned up using an ultrasonic sink or the parts washer. The front cover and the back cover and the center section cleaned up really well, so I went ahead and got some paint on those. I'm using VHT's super crazy hot temperature paint. I think it goes up to like 2,000 degrees or something like that, so hopefully that's enough for that. For all the parts that we're not going to be reusing, this is what comes in the turbo rebuild kit. So it comes with new fasteners, new gaskets, C-clips, bearings, thrust washer, like everything you need to rebuild the turbo. And you may have noticed that one thing is not like the other. Yeah, the turbine housing. Unfortunately, whenever I was taking this off of the engine, I snapped off one of the bolts there. So I need to get the torch out, get that guy heated up. May have to weld a nut to it in order to back that off. Luckily, there's just enough thread on here in order to get a nut threaded on. All right, let's fire this thing up and weld that together. I hear they work better when you plug them in. I don't know why I left the nozzle there like I was TIG welding, but got a pretty good bead in there, so hopefully that fused enough to get this guy off. We'll see. I'm gonna set up some of these clamps just in case I gotta put some torque on it. I did let that soak with PB Blaster in there for like 2 days, so hopefully it loosened it up enough. All right, here we go. Oh, something's happening. Did it work? Nope. Looks like I gotta try again. I don't know if you can hear it on camera, but my dad decided it would be the perfect time to mow right now. That's fine. So thinking about it, I forgot to clean off the PB Blaster before I welded that on there, so I don't think I got a good enough weld, obviously. So I hit it with a bunch of solvent, and I'm gonna put some heat on it to see if that helps the weld fuse a little bit better. Definitely got a little bit more heat into it that time, so let's see if this one holds. I don't know. Honestly, it's feeling a little too easy. Oh, maybe we got it. Nope. Damn it. All right, well, this isn't working. I'm gonna have to come up with a new plan. Okay, new plan. I put a washer on there, so I'm gonna weld that stub flat to that washer, and then I'm gonna weld this nut on top of that, and then I'm gonna fill it all in. All right, let's see if this did it. It's still smoking hot. I'm getting movement, and it's staying pretty hard, which is a good sign. It's heating my socket up though. Feels like something let go. Hopefully it wasn't my weld job. Oh, it was. Man, I just can't get this thing off of here. All right, I'm gonna be honest. Things got a little out of hand, as you could probably tell by every single tool that I own out on this table right here. So what I ended up doing was drilling out the bolt with the drill bit that was the same exact size as the bolt, then using a thread chaser in order to chase out the remaining threads from the bolt. And now I'm just going back through with this tap in order to clean up the threads and get out any remaining bolt material. Got a fresh coat of paint on the turbine housing, so now we can start putting this guy back together. Also, a rattle can lid fits perfectly into the outlet, so you don't even have to tape it up. All right, we're gonna start with the center section, and specifically the mechanism that drives the Unison ring. So I'm gonna be using either assembly lube, the high pressure stuff, or this max stuff, or maybe both, I don't know. They both will work fine in this application. So it's kind of hard to explain how this all goes together, so I wanted to set this up so it's a little bit easier to visualize. So this plunger right here actually moves back and forth inside of this bore, and it goes inside of there, right? And you can see there's these little grooves in here, and those grooves actually drive this gear. So this gear sits in this cavity down here, and when this is moving in and out, you line up the first tooth there, it's gonna spin this gear as it moves in and out. So attached inside of this gear, through this little hole right here, goes a roll pin, and that roll pin goes inside of that hole, actually that one, and that fits in there like that. And you can tell which way is up because there's these little chamfers on both of these, and if you turn them over, see how the hole is flat? So they match up. So you put chamfer to chamfer. So that goes in there like that, you put your roll pin through, and as that plunger is moving back and forth, it's gonna move this actuator arm with it. So if we flip the center section over, this actuator arm actually sits in here, and it moves back and forth like this. So you have your Unison ring that sits here like that, just by the motion of this plunger going in and out. Moves that actuator, which then moves your Unison ring, which then opens and closes the vanes, which is pretty sweet. First, I'm gonna lube up this plunger. All right, I'll lube up the gear. Can be a little tricky getting the right tooth lined up. Maybe it'll be easier if we put the this guy in first. It'll kind of guide that gear in straight. So once that got lined up, it kind of fell right in, which is good. Bring you guys in here. Maybe hard to see there, but you can see how that first tooth on that gear is in the first groove. Next, we're gonna install this little roll pin. So that's gotta go in through the top here. So I'm just lining up the hole on the gear set, which I need to move it over just a little bit. Okay, I have the roll pin started. So now I'm just gonna gently tap it in with this giant hammer. And I'm going until it's just flush with the top of the gear. All right, when that's done, just gotta put the cap back on, but there is a O-ring that has to go inside of here first. So the new O-ring is gonna come in the turbo rebuild kit. Put a little bit of assembly lube on there. All right, then you just drop in the cap. Probably have to tap it down a little bit as well. Once it's down far enough, you'll see a little groove for the snap ring to go in. Okay, next thing we're gonna do is install the turbine. But first we have to replace this little worn out clip right here. And that comes in the turbo rebuild kit. See if I can't get this guy off of here. All right, there's the old one. All right, that guy's on. All right, next is our bearing stack up. So we're gonna install, actually it's a bushing, I guess. Brass bushing, let me get this all lubed up here. Next is your spacer. And next is another brass bushing. All right, once all that's lubed up, slide it carefully into the center section. And you should hear it snap in whenever that ring compresses. There it goes. All right, I have the center section flipped over, so we're looking at the compressor side right now. So the way this side's gonna go together is the first thing that goes on is this thrust spacer. After that is gonna be the actual thrust washer. And this hole right here is the oil supply to this thrust washer. So this groove that's cut, you can see it better there. This groove right here is actually what feeds the oil to these 6 oil passages. So that has to go in this way. And then on top of that, you actually have your oil ring. And that's gonna go on just like this. So you have this tiny little C-clip here that needs to go in that tiny groove right there. I don't know if you can see it. So let's get that in there real quick. All right, you can see it's in there. Cool, so I'm gonna actually pull this back out because I want to make sure that everything has assembly lube on it. All right, and the last thing that needs to go on this side before we put the backing plate on, there is another O-ring that goes right into this groove here. All right, next up is the backing plate. So on the inside, there's an arrow pointing up, and that's the way that this needs to go. And the rebuild kit provides you with new fasteners for this as well. Torque spec on these guys is 12 foot-pounds. Next up, we're gonna get the turbine housing ready to go. So I'm gonna install all these vanes. So I gotta make sure that the Unison ring is lined up the right way. So I'm kinda looking at the turbine here. So that means that this notch is gonna be at like the 1 o'clock position. So individually you gotta get all these vanes lined up. It's cool, now you can kind of see how it works. When the Unison ring spins, it simultaneously opens or closes all of these vanes. Very important that you don't forget the Vband clamp. All right, time to marry these two sections together. So there's a locating pin here that goes right there, and you got to make sure that this actuator falls into that slot. There it goes. All right, tighten up this Vband clamp. All right, next is the new compressor wheel. So remember, this is reverse threaded. All right, torque on this guy is 175 inch-pounds. Now I can put the front cover on. Actually, first we need to put on the new gasket. That guy goes in this groove right here. And very carefully install the cover. Crazy how tight this clearance is between this cover and these blades. Definitely give it a twist, make sure you don't have any interference, which you don't, which is good. Rebuild kit gives you new fasteners for the front cover as well. So the front cover bolts are 110 inch-pounds. All right, just a couple more things left to do. The last couple things we have in our rebuild kit are the new O-rings for the vane position actuator, which is this guy's going to replace all these brown nasty O-rings. Install the position sensor, and what we forgot to do earlier was install this cap and this O-ring and this snap ring in the bore where the plunger is for the actual vane actuation. First I'm going to lube up this bore a little bit with some assembly lube. And it's cool, this actually has a threaded insert in there so you could put a bolt in. It helps you whenever you're pulling it out, but the thing is you got to press this in, and you can press it in too far, and then you can use this bolt to kind of pull it back out once you get the snap ring installed. This is a snap ring right here. Let's go. Snap ring is in. So now, since I went a little bit too far, I'm going to thread this guy back in and pull it out. All right, I replaced all the O-rings on the vane position actuator. So we'll go ahead and get that guy installed, which goes right in this board here. But first, lube it up. This was the old fastener, but they give you a brand new one in the rebuild kit. And that is to fasten the cage that goes around this guy. So that goes like that. All right, I believe the only thing we have left is the vane position sensor. It goes right in the top. There you have it, guys. A fully rebuilt turbo, ready to go. I mean, we got to see what this guy looks like on the engine, right? Oh man, it's so heavy. Okay, a little bit more right there. Oh yeah, that's looking really good in there. Man, we're so close. So close. Gotta do the front accessories, which I have all the brackets ready to go over there. Just need to get them cleaned up and painted. All the plumbing, and we're so close to firing this thing up. All right guys, that's gonna do it for today's episode. Join me on the next one when we have an awesome upgrade coming to the shop. We're gonna be installing AC and heat. If you like what you see, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.